My name is Marina Caldwell, and I'm 22 years old. If I close my eyes, I can still feel the blue fabric of my graduation gown sticking to my wrists like a second skin. The air inside my apartment heavy with steam from the iron and the smell of grocery store tulips. Stephanie had bought them because she said every big day needed something living in it. Color matters, she'd said, arranging the petals like a tiny fireworks show on my desk. You need a room that claps for you. That was an hour before I learned my family would not. I kept checking my phone, lock screen bright, then dark, then bright again, as if attention alone could conjure love. Nothing from Mom, nothing from Dad. A text from Nathan, though. Parking. Navy suit wrinkled, but it's a charming wrinkle. Proud of you. Stephanie drifted into my doorway, holding an extra bobby pin between her teeth. Turn. She pinned the stray curl behind my ear. There, Marina, you look like a headline. I wanted to tell her I was a footnote. We left early for Cameron Indoor, the campus already throbbing with families in celebratory clothes, 1,000 different versions of pride pressed into one morning. The sky was reckless with sunshine. Nathan met us at the curb, kissed my cheek, then held me a beat longer than usual. I found seats where your folks can see you clearly, he said. Text them the section? They'll ask for directions anyway, I joked, and my throat tightened around the lie. On the walk in, memories kept flaring up like stubborn sparks. The debate trophy I once held in our front hallway while Mom Googled catering options for Victoria's fundraising gala. The way Dad's eyes could track a basketball but never an honor roll. The conversation about Duke, about me, cut clean in half so my older sister could announce a new investor for her lifestyle branding company. It's not favoritism, Mom would say. It's timing. Family health is about allocating attention where it's most urgent. She'd use that word, allocating, as if love were a budget and I was the miscellaneous line item that kept getting trimmed. Inside, the stadium roared. I scanned the stands with methodical precision, row by row, like a researcher collecting data and daring it to prove me wrong. I told myself they were just late. Parking, traffic, a dead phone, a charging cord coiled in some kitchen drawer like a tiny snake. People miss things. Marina Dawn Caldwell, the dean would say later. It's funny what you notice in the hour before your heart cracks, the little things that try to be mercy. The calm weight of the cap bobby pinned into hair, the gloss on Stephanie's lip catching a shard of sun, the exact cadence of Nathan's voice when he whispered, You're here. We're here. I checked my phone again. Nothing from home. We lined up. The edge of my paper name card dug into my palm, a precise paper-cut ache that felt like a warning. Then, just before we began to move, my phone vibrated. I glanced down and exhaled, relieved. Mom. I swiped. Her voice spilled out cautiously bright, like someone opening a door, just enough to slip in and out quickly. Honey, happy day. Listen, we're at the Scottsdale Resort with your sister. There was a last-minute opening for a luncheon with 2 of her big investors. You know how crucial this is. We knew you'd understand. We'll call after the speeches. We love you. The call ended while I was still forming the word wait. The world didn't tilt. It flattened. Every sound lost depth. People clapped like distant weather. I stared at my screen until my name blurred into a smudge. Stephanie's fingers closed over my wrist. She didn't say, I'm sure there's a reason, the way polite people invent parachutes out of napkins. She just said, I'm here. Nathan slid in on my other side. Breathe with me, he murmured. In, 2, 3. Out. Names were read. Mortarboards bobbed. Someone whooped so loudly I felt it in my ribs. When the dean finally called Marina Dawn Caldwell, I stepped forward as if my body had been loaned to me for this purpose alone. The stage boards were sun-warm through my shoes. The flash popped. My mouth obeyed the choreography of a smile while my eyes kept scanning the same 2 patches of seats, as if hope itself were a superstition I didn't quite know how to quit. There's a specific humiliation to standing in the place you fought to reach and realizing no one who built the map with you bothered to show. I moved my tassel. The crowd clapped for everyone, which is kind but uncustomized. I told myself that applause could be enough if I let it be. Outside, the families turned the stadium lawns into little festivals. Bouquets, squeals, parents practicing the art of beaming. Stephanie wrapped me in a hug that felt like a coat. Nathan kissed my temple as if he could iron the day smooth with his mouth. We took photos in the slant of noon light, my gown, Steph's grin, Nathan's rumpled navy, and still my eyes dragged right, then left, hunting for the people in whose direction I'd been running for 4 years. My phone finally rang again. Mom, I answered, and the sounds of clinking cutlery and performative laughter ballooned through the speaker. Sweetheart, Mom trilled, as if I had just stepped into their ballroom rather than the other way around. Tell me everything. Oh, hold on. Victoria's CFO is about to toast. They're discussing a bridge. Isn't that wonderful? This could be the moment. You understand. Family sometimes has to prioritize. I walked, I said, stupidly literal, a child naming the shape. I graduated. Of course you did, Mom said, distracted, proud in the way of a person pleased with herself for saying the correct line. We'll celebrate next weekend. Maybe a steakhouse. Your father's checking our points. Okay, I said, to a sky that had stopped looking like celebration and started looking like glare. When the call cut, my hands were shaking so hard the tulips in the photo Nathan had taken of me blurred into watercolor. I didn't rage. Rage requires an audience. Instead, something in me rethreaded itself, small stitch by small stitch, into an outline. The version of my life where I quit begging for even light and learned to carry my own. It was not a vow shouted to the horizon. It was the quiet click of a lock finding its new home. I have my interview tomorrow, I said aloud, mostly to convince the part of me that wanted to crawl back into bed and starfish a surrender. Tech Venture Labs. Market projections. I could do numbers. Numbers were honest. They didn't love you on Monday and forget you by Friday. They balanced or they didn't. Then tonight we eat something carby and tomorrow you turn their brains into confetti, Stephanie said. That's the plan. Nathan threaded his fingers through mine. And I'll meet you after to celebrate, he said, voice low, or hold you if the world is stupid again. Either way, you're not going through it alone. As we walked toward the parking lot, my phone buzzed once more. A text from Dad, short and managerial. Proud. Logistics conflicted. We'll make it up. Family is about allocation. That word again. Allocation. As if I were a fund to be repurposed when the real project needed cash flow. I stopped moving. The sun washed over the asphalt in a hard white sheet. Stephanie turned back. You okay? Yes, I said, and for the first time, the syllable didn't feel like camouflage. It felt like architecture. I am. That evening, the apartment was quiet, the tulips leaning their heads together as if gossiping. I spread my notes across the table, market sizing, churn percentages, a draft of a 5-minute story about a product I actually believed in, and listened to the whir of the box fan as if it were applause. At the bottom of my notebook, I wrote the sentence I needed. No more shrinking to fit their chairs. Somewhere in Arizona, my sister was probably telling a room full of people that risk was just faith in disguise. Mom would be nodding like she was hearing herself. Dad would be calculating the tax implications of pride. I tried those images on, then set them down. Tomorrow was real. Tomorrow asked for the version of me I liked best, the one who could learn anything if she cared enough. Stephanie tapped on my door frame with a bowl of reheated pasta. We feed the brain, she said. We hydrate, we sleep, we annihilate. I laughed, surprised by the sound. Yes, Coach. Later, in bed, the room a soft rectangle of dark, I reran the day with the volume turned down until the only things left were the ones I wanted to keep. My name pronounced into a microphone, the weight of the diploma folder, Nathan's wrinkled navy, the ridiculous tulips spilling color over my desk, my own handwriting at the bottom of a page like a promise. The phone blinked on the nightstand, a notification from an unknown number. Break a leg tomorrow, see. For a second, I wondered if my sister had assigned someone to keep tabs on me. Then I remembered a throwaway story Nathan had once told me about his ex, Chloe, who'd worked briefly with one of Victoria's suppliers. A coincidence, probably, or not. Either way, I put the phone face down. I slept. In the morning, I would wake up and walk into a building full of people who didn't know me as anybody's second choice. I would talk about numbers and markets and ideas and watch faces change when they realized I wasn't just a girl who'd learned to vanish on command. I would begin the life where love wasn't an allocation and I wasn't a line item. But that night, before sleep reached me, I whispered it once, out loud, like a spell that only works if it hears itself. No more. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds like it had something to prove. bright, relentless, too sure of itself. The kind of light that doesn't care if you had your heart cracked open less than 24 hours ago. Stephanie was already in the kitchen, clattering dishes with unnecessary optimism. "Coffee or courage first?" she called. "Both," I muttered, dragging myself out of bed. She placed a mug in my hands, her voice softening. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My eyes were swollen enough to speak for me. Nathan arrived half an hour later, still smelling faintly of his morning run. He held out a paper bag. "Breakfast victory kit. Blueberry muffin, banana, protein bar. Take your pick, Miss Future Analyst." The attempt at normalcy hit me square in the chest. I managed a small smile. "Thanks." He leaned on the counter, watching me carefully. "You sure you want to go through with the interview today? You could reschedule." "No," I interrupted. "If I stop moving, I'll sink." Stephanie nodded approvingly. "That's my girl." The Tech Venture Labs building sat like a glass cathedral in downtown Raleigh, all sharp lines and confidence. As I stepped inside, the air smelled of coffee, ambition, and a faint note of printer ink. I checked in at the front desk, palms damp but steady. "Marina Caldwell, 10 a.m. interview," I told the receptionist. She smiled. "They're expecting you. Elevator to the 12th floor." In the mirrored doors, I barely recognized myself. Pressed suit, clean lines, hair tucked behind one ear. A woman who looked composed, if not quite calm. The interview was intense. 3 rounds, different panels, questions about market forecasting, user behavior models, and startup scalability. At one point, my throat tightened, thinking of how Mom might have loved telling people her daughter was interviewing for Tech Venture Labs, if she'd cared enough to ask. But then something inside me clicked. I wasn't doing this for them anymore. By the time the final question landed, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" I smiled. "Building systems that help small companies see their value before anyone else does." They exchanged glances, impressed. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel invisible. That night, back in the apartment, I stared at the tulips. They were fading already, their edges curling in on themselves. Stephanie sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "You crushed it, didn't you?" "Maybe," I said, half smiling. "I think I did." "Correction," she said. "You definitely did." Nathan called later. "Dinner on me tonight. You deserve to celebrate." "Let's wait till I actually get the job," I said. He chuckled. "You're such a realist. Fine. Pre-celebration dinner then." I could hear the warmth in his voice, the steadiness. That was the thing about Nathan. He didn't fill silence with noise. He let it breathe. 2 weeks later, an email arrived. Subject: Offer letter. Tech Venture Labs. Body: Congratulations, Ms. Caldwell. We were deeply impressed by your interview performance. I screamed. Stephanie nearly dropped her laptop. "You got it?" "I got it," I laughed, spinning her in circles. For a moment, joy washed everything else away. Later that night, when the celebration had quieted and the apartment was still again, my phone buzzed. "Mom. Sweetheart, your sister's investors are thrilled with the expansion plans. We're so proud of both our girls." Both. As if my achievements were an echo of Victoria's, not their own melody. I didn't respond. The first month at Tech Venture Labs was a blur of data sheets, caffeine, and the kind of adrenaline that keeps you upright long after you should collapse. My supervisor, Jennifer, was sharp, fair, and not easily impressed, which made her occasional nods of approval feel like gold. "All your projections check out," she said one evening. "You've got an instinct for this work. Keep it up." Those words did something to me, rearranged the architecture of my chest. Recognition. Earned, not begged. I started therapy around the same time. Stephanie had gently insisted. "You can't heal in the same silence that hurt you," she'd said. The first session felt awkward, like trying to translate grief into a language my mouth wasn't fluent in. But Dr. Patterson had kind eyes and the kind of patience that didn't demand performance. "How often did you feel unseen growing up?" she asked softly. I laughed once, bitterly. "How often is there oxygen in the room?" She didn't flinch. "And when you were noticed?" "It was usually to remind me to clap louder for Victoria." Dr. Patterson nodded. "That must have been lonely." "It was," I admitted. "Still is sometimes." There was a pause, then she said, "You know, sometimes people who grow up unseen learn to achieve loudly. Success becomes proof of existence." That line stuck to my ribs long after the session ended. A few weeks later, I was staying late at the office, finalizing a report when Jennifer stopped by. "Go home, Marina. You've done more than enough for today." I smiled. Thanks. Just want to make sure everything's ready for tomorrow's pitch. She grinned. That's exactly why you're going to go far. When she left, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. For once, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom. Honey, just checking in. Your sister's had a rough week. The expansion hit a snag, but she'll bounce back. Family always does, right? No mention of my new job. No congratulations. Not even a question. Just another reminder that in our family, success flowed one direction, toward Victoria. But something was different this time. The ache didn't hollow me out. It sharpened me. At our next therapy session, I told Dr. Patterson about the message. She didn't even ask how I was doing, I said. What did that feel like? She asked. Predictable, I paused. And that scares me. I don't want their neglect to feel normal. Dr. Patterson leaned forward slightly. Maybe it's not neglect anymore, Marina. Maybe it's clarity. Clarity. The word lingered. As I left her office, my phone buzzed once more, this time from an unknown number. Victoria here. Call me when you can. I might need your advice on something. I stared at it for a long time, torn between instinct and exhaustion. I didn't reply. Not yet. The next phase of my life was just beginning. But deep down, I knew. The family storm I'd escaped hadn't passed. It had only paused to gather strength. And this time, when it came for me again, I wouldn't be the quiet one. By the end of summer, my world looked almost unrecognizable in the best possible way. Tech Venture Labs had become my second home. Deadlines, brainstorming sessions, last-minute presentations. I lived for it. Every day was a puzzle, and I was finally the one holding the missing piece. Caldwell, you're on fire, Jennifer said one morning after our client presentation. If you keep this up, you'll be leading your own project before winter. For the first time in my life, someone's belief in me didn't feel conditional. When I called Nathan to tell him, he actually whooped loud enough that I had to pull the phone away. See? Told you the world would catch up to how brilliant you are. I think I'm still catching up myself, I laughed. Then I guess you better start running faster, he said, because I plan on keeping up. I was still riding that wave of satisfaction when the text came in. Mom, can you call when you have a moment? It's about your sister. I stared at the message for several seconds. Then I exhaled and typed back, I'm at work. What's going on? No reply for an hour. Then another ping. Mom, just call. It's complicated. That was always her word for bad news wrapped in guilt. When I finally called, her tone was syrup sweet, rehearsed. Sweetheart, how are you? We've been thinking about you so much. How's the new job? It's great, I said evenly. What's wrong with Victoria? A pause. Oh, honey, I didn't want to worry you, but things have gotten a little difficult for her company. Some of her investors pulled out unexpectedly. She's under a lot of stress. I waited. There was always a but. But, she continued, she's got this amazing opportunity. New branding campaign, potential partnership with a major retailer. If she can just secure short-term funding, she can stabilize everything. Your father and I were talking. Mom, I interrupted, please don't tell me what I think you're about to. Well, she said, her voice softening into that careful, guilt-laden tone. We thought maybe you could help. Just a small loan, temporary. You've been doing so well, and we're all family. Family helps each other. There it was, the allocation speech, reborn. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You missed my graduation for her investor lunch, and now you want me to invest in her failed company? Don't be dramatic, Marina. We're asking, not demanding. I laughed quietly, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. Of course you are. Sweetheart, Mom said, switching to her pleading tone. Think of it as returning the support we gave you for college. Remember how hard we worked to get you through Duke? My chest went still. What do you mean, support you gave me? I had a scholarship, Mom, a full one. Well, yes, she said quickly, but there were still living expenses and... And what? Her silence was deafening. That night, I could not stop thinking about her words. Returning the support we gave you. I logged into the old student finance portal. Everything was covered by my scholarship and the grant program. I knew that. But something kept nagging at me, a memory I hadn't paid attention to at the time. A summer before freshman year. Dad sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers. Mom saying, let's just move part of it from her account. We'll replace it later. Victoria's launch needs immediate capital. At 18, I'd thought they meant something small, maybe a family savings account. But now, sitting in my apartment surrounded by spreadsheets from work, the logic felt too familiar. They'd reallocated me. I opened my banking app. The college account that had once been in my name, the one my grandparents had set up years ago, was closed. Transfer history. C. Management holdings. Victoria's company. My hands shook. I called Mom back the next morning. I want the truth, I said, my voice cold. Did you use my college fund to finance Victoria's business? Sweetheart. Yes or no? She hesitated. We didn't take anything from you. We borrowed. You got a full scholarship and the money was just sitting there. It seemed smart to use it for something that could benefit the family long term. We meant to pay it back. You meant, I said flatly, but you didn't. We were helping your sister. She's building something for all of us. No, I snapped. She was building something for herself, and you helped her steal from me to do it. Watch your tone, Marina, Dad's voice cut in, stern and defensive. We made a family decision. You benefited plenty from our sacrifices. Your sacrifices? I laughed bitterly. You mean taking from your daughter, who didn't need you, so you could gamble on the one who did? Dad sighed. We don't need to fight. We just hoped you could be mature enough to understand that families share resources. Then maybe it's time I stopped being part of that family, I said quietly, and hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel anger at first. Just clarity, cold and cutting. At work that week, I threw myself into a market analysis project, channeling every ounce of hurt into precision. Numbers made sense. Families didn't. During a late-night session, Jennifer noticed. You okay, Marina? You've been laser-focused lately. Impressive, but intense. I'm fine, I lied. She studied me. Just remember, when you burn too hot for too long, something catches fire. Make sure it's not you. I nodded, but I wasn't listening. Inside, something already had burned, and what was left was sharper than before. 3 days later, Victoria called. Marina, she started softly, Mom said you were upset. Upset? That's one word for it. I didn't know about the college fund, she said quickly. That was Mom and Dad's call, but please don't hate them. They thought they were helping. I let the silence stretch. You could have told them no. I couldn't, she said, her voice cracking. They believed in me. I didn't want to disappoint them. And you were fine with them disappointing me? Don't twist it, she snapped suddenly. You have everything now. A degree, a job, a boyfriend. You're thriving. I'm drowning, Marina. You can afford to be generous. There it was, the entitlement, neatly disguised as desperation. Victoria, I said calmly, I worked for every inch of this life. You gambled with money that wasn't yours. I'm not your bailout. You'll regret this, she hissed. Family doesn't turn its back. I'm not turning my back, I said. I'm walking away. And I did. That night, Nathan came over. You look like someone just walked out of a war zone, he said gently. I think I did, I murmured. I told him everything. The fund, the call, the guilt trip. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he said, You don't owe them repair for the damage they caused. They're my parents, I whispered. My sister. Then they should have protected you, not used you. I exhaled shakily. So what now? Now, he said, pulling me close. You build something they can't touch. 2 weeks later, I began doing exactly that. Opening a new account, setting boundaries, drawing a line between blood and belonging. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. But something told me the Caldwells weren't done trying to rewrite the rules. And the next time they reached for me, I wouldn't just refuse. I'd make sure they learned what no really meant. It started small, like all traps do. A text here, a voicemail there. Mom's voice trembled, just enough to sound sincere. Mom, sweetheart, please, let's have dinner, just to talk. No pressure. I ignored the first few messages, but by the fifth, curiosity began to sting louder than resentment. Maybe part of me wanted to see if they were capable of remorse. Maybe I just wanted to look my mother in the eye and watch her squirm. So I agreed. One dinner, I told her. Neutral ground. No guilt, no requests. Of course, honey, she said. Just family catching up. I should have known that sentence was a lie the second it left her lips. The restaurant was one of those upscale family places that pretends intimacy can be bought with dim lighting and overpriced bread. Nathan offered to come with me, but I shook my head. If it turns into a scene, I don't want you caught in it. He frowned. You sure? I need to handle this myself. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Then handle it, but call me the second you're out. Mom and Dad were already seated when I arrived. They stood to hug me like actors who hadn't rehearsed the scene enough times. You look wonderful, Mom said, scanning me up and down, as though success were an outfit she could claim credit for. Let's skip the formalities, I said, sliding into my chair. What do you want? Dad's smile faltered. We can't even have a normal meal before you assume the worst? When you've turned every family dinner into a negotiation, yes, I replied. Mom sighed dramatically. Always so defensive. I raised two daughters, but sometimes it feels like I got one stranger and one disappointment. Glad we agree on the disappointment part, I said coolly. Her eyes flicked toward the entrance. There's actually someone joining us, just for a few minutes. It'll help clear things up. Before I could ask what she meant, the server pulled out a chair for a familiar face. Chloe, Nathan's ex. She looked exactly as I remembered her from photos. Sleek hair, corporate polish, a smile so precise it could slice paper. What is she doing here? I demanded. Mom clasped her hands. She works with one of Victoria's partners now. We thought she could help explain the situation objectively. Objectively? I repeated. You brought my boyfriend's ex to mediate a family betrayal? Chloe's smile didn't waver. Marina, I just want to make sure you understand what's at stake. Victoria's company has employees depending on it. If it collapses, your family could face legal exposure. The funds were tied to a joint trust. My heart slammed once, hard. Excuse me, what trust? Dad cleared his throat. A technical detail. Years ago, we consolidated some family accounts. The college fund, your grandmother's savings, and Victoria's seed money were under the same umbrella. If the business goes bankrupt, creditors could... Trace it back to my name, I finished. You use my name. It was cleaner for tax purposes, he said. Cleaner, I repeated, my voice sharp as glass. You used my identity as collateral, and now you're telling me I'm legally tied to her debts? Mom leaned forward, panic flickering under her poise. If we can just stabilize things for a few months. You mean if I can, I snapped. You're asking me to bail you out of a crime you built on my back. Chloe's tone softened, professional. No one's accusing anyone of a crime. It's just paperwork, Marina. You could transfer a portion of your savings temporarily. I turned to her, my patience splintering. Tell Victoria I said she can burn her empire for all I care, and you, stay out of my life. Her expression faltered, just for a second. Nathan always said you had fire, she murmured. Then you should know not to play with it. I stood. Chairs scraped. Every head in the restaurant seemed to turn. Sit down, Marina, Dad said, voice low but threatening. You're making a scene. Good, I said. Someone needs to witness yours. Mom reached out a hand. Sweetheart, please, don't make this worse. It's already worse, I said, shaking her off. You made sure of that when you forged my signature. Her face paled. We didn't... Don't bother lying. I'll find the paperwork myself. Then I walked out. Outside, my hands trembled so hard I could barely unlock my phone. Nathan answered on the first ring. Where are you? He asked, voice tight. Parking lot, I said. Don't ask questions. Just drive. He didn't. He just said, on my way. By the time his car pulled up, my anger had cooled into something harder. A plan. They used my college fund as a trust for Victoria's company, I said once I was in the passenger seat. They forged my consent. Nathan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. We'll get proof. We'll fix this. Not fix, I said. Expose. He glanced over. Are you sure? That could blow everything up. Then let it. The next few days blurred into controlled chaos. I called a lawyer, one of Jennifer's old contacts who specialized in business fraud. We met in a quiet downtown office, papers spread across mahogany. When I showed him the trust documentation Dad had emailed years ago, his eyes narrowed. That's your digital signature? No, I said flatly. He exhaled. Then you've got a case. We filed a preliminary complaint. The attorney promised to handle it discreetly, but he warned me. If your sister's company defaults, this will get loud. I can handle loud, I said. That weekend, Mom called again. What have you done? She hissed. Victoria's panicking. Do you realize what you've started? Accountability, I said. Long overdue. Marina, you're destroying this family. No, I said quietly. You did. I'm just done cleaning up the mess. Dad cut in from the background. If you don't withdraw the complaint, there will be consequences. You're not untouchable, young lady. I smiled, bitterly calm. Neither are you. Then I hung up. Later that night, Nathan found me sitting on the balcony, the city lights flickering like tiny confessions. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I said. It feels like burning your own house down just to see the smoke. He slid down beside me. Sometimes you have to burn the rot before you rebuild. I turned to look at him. What if there's nothing left to rebuild? Then you build something new. I leaned my head on his shoulder. They're not going to stop. You know that, right? He nodded. Then we don't either. The next morning, an email arrived from an unknown address. Attached was a scanned document, my supposed authorization for the trust transfer. At the bottom, a digital signature, M. Caldwell. But the timestamp was from a day I'd been in class, hundreds of miles away. It wasn't just a forgery, it was proof. I forwarded it to the lawyer with a single line, "Let's finish this." Somewhere in the distance, I knew the Caldwell family empire was cracking open. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one who patched it. 6 months later, everything had changed. Victoria's company collapsed under the weight of its own lies. The trust investigation exposed the forged documents, and the fallout spread like wildfire. My parents' financial accounts were frozen for review, Victoria's reputation shredded across every business journal that once celebrated her. My attorney kept me updated with careful detachment. "You're fully cleared," he said during our final meeting. "The signatures were confirmed fraudulent. Your name's protected." "Protected," I repeated, the word tasting strange. "That's new." He smiled. "You earned it." At Tech Venture Labs, the world kept spinning faster. Jennifer promoted me to project director after our merger with Global Tech Solutions. The same week, an industry magazine ran a feature on rising women in tech. My face was on page 3, smiling, certain, untouched by ghosts. When I showed the article to Nathan, he lifted me off the floor, laughing. "I told you, Marina Caldwell is unstoppable." I kissed him, laughing into his shoulder. "Let's not test the universe." He grinned. "Too late. I already bought us tickets to California for a long weekend. You need a break." On our second night there, he proposed. It wasn't elaborate, just us. A quiet stretch of beach at sunset, waves folding in and out like the world exhaling. He handed me a small velvet box, the ocean light catching the ring inside. "Marina," he said softly, "you've spent your whole life proving yourself to people who never saw you. I don't need proof. I just need you." For the first time in years, I didn't hesitate before saying yes. The engagement party was small. Close friends, co-workers, Stephanie, of course, standing at my side with champagne and a grin big enough to light the room. "To Marina," she said, raising her glass, "the woman who walked through fire and didn't burn. She built something new from the ashes." Everyone cheered. Nathan kissed my hand. I thought that would be the end of it, of all of them. But ghosts have good timing. 3 days later, I got an email from Mom. "Marina, we've made terrible mistakes. Victoria's gone into debt, and your father's health is failing. We lost the house. Please, we need you. Family is family no matter what's happened. Love, Mom." I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no "I'm sorry," no mention of what they'd done to me. Just another quiet command disguised as a plea. I closed the email and didn't reply. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail, handwritten this time, as if nostalgia could soften deceit. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity is a cruel habit. "Marina, I know you think we don't love you, but everything we did was for this family. Maybe we made bad choices, but we believed in your sister's vision. You have every right to hate us, but please, don't turn your back forever. Your father can't sleep. He says your silence hurts worse than the investigation ever did. Love always, Mom." I folded the letter once, then again, until it was small enough to fit in my palm. Then I placed it in the drawer with my old Duke graduation photo, the one where I stood smiling with no parents in the frame. That photo used to make me ache. Now it made me proud. Because I'd done it alone. The wedding came a year later. A small coastal ceremony in Carmel, just family by choice. Stephanie as my maid of honor. Jennifer sitting front row. Nathan's parents beaming like they'd known me forever. No empty chairs, no ghosts. As I walked down the aisle, the breeze lifted my veil, sunlight spilling across the ocean. For a second, I thought about the letter still tucked in that drawer back home. About how once, I would have given anything to see my parents' faces waiting for me. Now I didn't need them there to feel complete. When Nathan took my hands, his voice was steady. "You taught me that love isn't about being chosen. It's about choosing, every day." I smiled through tears. "Then I choose this, us, every day." We exchanged vows as the waves broke behind us, applause rising with the wind. For the first time in my life, the moment felt exactly mine. Later that night, after the guests had left and the candles burned low, I stood barefoot on the sand, watching the tide erase footprints. Nathan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Thinking about them?" he asked quietly. "Maybe," I said, "but it's different now. I don't need to forgive them to move on. I just need to stop looking backward." He kissed the top of my head, then let the tide take it. I let the letter go that night, literally. I'd brought it with me, tucked inside my bag like a ghost that needed releasing. I unfolded it once, let the wind steal it from my hand, and watched it vanish into the dark. There was no ceremony, no words of goodbye, just the soft sound of paper meeting water and disappearing. As we walked back toward the beach house, I whispered the same phrase that had started this entire journey, the one I'd written in my college notebook years ago. No more shrinking to fit their chairs. It wasn't anger anymore, it was peace. I'd built my life on my own terms: career, love, freedom, self-respect, and that was enough. Some people say blood is thicker than water. Maybe, but I've learned that peace is thicker than guilt, and I'm done drowning in either one. So, what do you think? Was I right to walk away, even from family? Or is forgiveness something we owe, no matter how deep the betrayal runs? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes breaking free isn't rebellion, it's survival.